Testing. Okay, awesome. Awesome. What day are we? Wednesday. Happy Wednesday, folks. We're so glad that y'all are here to join us in our Navigating Networking Realities, what networking really looks like, especially as women navigating the corporate space and professionally, especially for our male folks who are here. Thank you all for coming to amplify women's voices and leadership. Very exciting to have you here. So we're gonna get started. But again, just to briefly introduce myself, for those of you who don't know, my name is Hannah King. I am the Experiential Learning Specialist. It is my honor and privilege to facilitate our panel talk today. This is definitely a topic I'm very passionate about, so I'm very honored to be a facilitator today. Just a quick disclaimer, folks. A lot of the responses shared today are going to be of personal opinions and not like them of their affiliated companies per se. So I just want to put it out there that these are more professional, personal opinions and not of their companies that they come from. Okay. Like I shared in the flyer, we're going to cover three major topics: breaking into tech, especially as women, right? Networking. I know that's a big umbrella. And finally, any pearls of wisdom as we move forward. Okay, after our panel talk, we'll gather to do a group picture because that's what we do as Northeastern, and then we'll kind of break off into some mingling time over drinks and fruits. Okay, so without a further ado, we're gonna get started. First, we're gonna do a little bit of panel introductions. Okay, so for our panelists, I know your faces and names and all that are up there, but please share with the audience, right? Your name, your current role and company, your tenure with that company, and how did you get into that role? Or was it a door that you had to create to enter into that? Okay, so we'll kind of go down the line. But first, after Jennifer, after you introduce yourself, I do want to have a follow-up question for these panelists to again make the most use of our time together. Okay, so with that, I'll pass it over to you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay, you guys got to interact better than that, okay? Anyways, my name's Jennifer Cho, and I'm currently a program manager on the memory side at Western Digital. I've been at Western Digital for 2 years. I just passed my 2-year anniversary on March 14th. Basically, how did I get into tech? My passion was law. So I went to Berkeley and I studied political science with the vision of becoming a lawyer. But a senior of mine, who's my roommate, she said, "Oh, you should get some job experience to, put that on your resume when you apply to law school." So I said, "Okay." I didn't have any job experience, and then I applied to a couple places. And my first job was at LG. And then I started saying, "Hey, I'm getting paid for being responsible. I'm being paid for being an adult." And then that's where it was a kind of pivotal point. And then I said, no, I want to continue working. And we're in the Silicon Valley. So that's where I am today. Mhm.
Awesome. So it sounds like you had initial plan, right? But then you kind of stuck with your gut of like leaning into the opportunity and the advantage of being in the Silicon Valley space landscape. So with that, I wanted to ask a follow-up question around female leadership. As a program manager, right, you deal with a lot of stakeholders, you deal with a lot of competing priorities and deadlines. How do you manage that? How do you cultivate stakeholder buy-in, especially as women, right, from our backgrounds? It's a little hard to step into that authority and leadership, right? So talk to us about female leadership. Where do you stand firm and where do you let go in those areas?
So female leadership is a scary term sometimes because you feel like you're not qualified to be a leader. I think that's the number one thing you have to kind of just say, everyone can be a leader. So that's one thing that I had to kind of tell myself. But in terms of bringing together different stakeholders, now the hardest thing about a job is not the job itself. Believe it or not, you will do what you need to do. But it's working with the people because you don't know them. You don't know what they want. You don't know where they came from. You don't know their background. So in terms of female leadership and how to cultivate that, getting allies together, you really have to understand their pain points. I think that really helped me to say, like, what makes it difficult for you to do this task, or what makes it difficult for you to meet this deadline? And when you hear their perspective, then you can compromise and say, oh, okay, that's the reason why you're having a problem, or that's your obstacle. And then you start working from there. So I think that really helped develop trust and respect, because you're acknowledging that they're having a hard time if they are. Or if they're not having a hard time, you're acknowledging that. You make a mental note, okay, this group, this person, he or she is fine. I don't have to spend too much time. They will come through with their deliverables. So that's another thing that I wanted to mention. And also just being clear. I mean, it's kind of like how we build relationship with people, right? With your friends, your family, your parents, whoever it may be, your boyfriend, girlfriend. Be clear on what your objectives are. Say, you know what, when you come to the meeting, I really expect you to do this, or give a status on this, because sometimes they're working on something totally different. So when you come to the meeting, you're like, what? So you have to align in that communication and really be clear on your objectives. And also, you can be clear and say, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing, but if you do this, it'll help me, and kind of show how their contribution affects what I have to do. That type of communication really helps. Um, in terms of, since we put the word female in there, in terms of the female part of the female leadership, I think treating everyone like a human being, whether you're male or female, I'm not an engineer, so I'm looking over at Yan, whether I'm an engineer or not, you just treat them the way that you would treat any other person. If you put that, oh, I'm a female, maybe I should be careful of what I say, or maybe they would like me to say this, I think that'll bring you down the wrong path. I really think it may sound good in the beginning, but at the end of the day, you're going to run into some trouble or misunderstanding. So in terms of that, yeah, I'll just want to end at that. Mhm.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, let's give her a round of applause. And again, welcome on the panel. So with that, we'll go to our next person. I'm going to pass the mic again.
Hi, everyone. My name is Silvia Arciniega. I am an associate data analyst at Hatch. It's actually a Shark Tank company. I've been there for 2 years now. I think August will mark 2 years, but 1.5 years technically. The way I broke into tech is a bit different from like what most people expect from someone like my age, maybe. I actually went through a program called Year Up. That's actually where I met Hannah. So it is, and Hannah, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like you know the concept a lot better than I do, but it is like a training program for people like me who otherwise wouldn't have gotten like a better chance at like getting into college or getting into tech in general. But that's how I got an internship with Hatch, and the rest is history.
So with that, the follow-up question for you, Sylvia, then is talk to us a little bit about your professional journey. You came in as an intern with a non-traditional background, not with a college degree background. You got this awesome opportunity at Hatch as an intern, and yet 2 years later, here you are. How do you manage that? How do you kind of, again, develop yourself professionally and not psych yourself out given the competing market?
There's definitely days where you like feel very doubtful in yourself, I feel like, especially like when you're comparing yourself against your peers. I feel like me having not have like a degree, I definitely compare myself a lot to like people my age, especially like my friends who have like college degrees and like have way better jobs than I do it again at my age. I think it's very important to remind yourself, like, especially when it comes to your job, like you're there for a reason. Like, out of how many applicants that they shuffled through, like you are the person that they picked. And again, there for a reason. But I think I could have just ended at that.
Awesome. Thank you, Sylvia. Let's give her a round of applause and welcome her onto the panel. And then on to the next side, we'll have Sora introduce herself, and then I'll have the follow-up question for you.
Hi, everyone. Excited to be here. My name is Sora Lee. I'm currently the Global Head of Product Marketing for Creative Solutions at TikTok, which is just about 15 minutes from here. I've been there for about a year and 2 months. And previously, I was at Meta for 6 years. I was also in product marketing for 3 years on Reels and Live, mostly entertainment products, creator-facing function. And before that, I was the Global Head of Media on the paid social side for Facebook consumer marketing. And before that, I was on the media buying side for different products within Facebook consumer marketing. And before joining Meta, I was at Netflix for 3-4 years, leading digital marketing there.
Awesome. So, Sora, talk to us about change management. You were at Meta. I stalked your LinkedIn. You were there for about 6 years. You were there before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and after the pandemic, right? So there's a lot to manage change when it comes to your team, the volatility of tech, but also personally, if I can tap into, I don't know how many of us follow her on Netflix from Love After Divorce, but you got to manage change in terms of expectations, right? Of being on the show. So again, talk to us a little bit about change management, whether it's on the professional or the personal side of things. Yeah.
So the topic change management, unless you are at a very senior leadership, chances are you're not really leading the change, you're just part of the change. And just accept the fact that change is always going to be constant, reorgs constantly, your manager leaving. I had my manager leave on December, my new manager leaving April 1st, and I don't know who my next manager is going to be. It's fine. It's not really my problem, right? And the more stressed out you're going to be, the more anxious you're going to be, you are the one losing. Like, what's the point of stressing over things that's beyond your control? So just know that change is constant. And another thing is, while these changes are happening, have you made a name for yourself in your organization? So early on in my career at Netflix, I made a mistake of putting all my eggs in one basket, as in my manager. He knew I was good at my job, and we were looking for a promo, and he took an amazing opportunity actually to go build, what's that company, Masterclass? So he was a very early employee. He was like, I heard about this weekend. It's too good. So I'm going. So he just went, which is good for him. But I had to rebuild myself because I didn't manage that before he left. So the new manager, even though we knew each other, he was like, well, I don't know you well enough. It's like, well, so that lesson there is, don't focus on just one person or one line of leadership to prove yourself that and make a name for yourself. So you want to be known for being good at X, Y, and Z, and also being good at, things that you're supposed to be doing. And you want that to, that image to be across the organization, not just your direct line of management. So that it does two things. When somebody leaves, it's going to impact you less. Another time when there's a reorg and they need this type of skill set, you're going to come to mind.
Yeah.
We hire her to do that job, or we bring her on board, even though we're eliminating that team, right? So that comes from knowing what you're good at and knowing what kind of work that gives you joy and energy.
Sure.
So, and voicing that out loud. So yeah, that's my 2 cents there.
Can I actually, before we welcome her in, I just had one quick follow-up to that when you mentioned kind of voicing that out. Where, how, to who? I know you said don't just put all your eggs in one basket of your leadership line, but in terms of like being strategic or being intentional, kind of, what are your insights into that of like kind of sharing a little bit more of that, spreading your eggs in more baskets and that?
Okay. So knowing who you are and what you're good at, and also understanding the environment and seeing how you get there. So I highly recommend this book called The Startup of You. So it talks about, if you consider yourself as a startup, or if you're a product, you're a brand, what are your strengths? What are your unique selling points? And then, is the market looking for that? So that's another thing you have to consider. If there are things that I want to do, but then the company doesn't care about that, or the industry or the economy doesn't care about that skill set, yeah, you can go do that, but don't expect to make money or get promoted for doing that. So there are going to be things that you like doing that you're good at, that it's beneficial for your organization and for your company. What are those things? And then how do you get more of those and make a name for yourself? So that comes from understanding these and then packaging it up in a way that makes sense to the audience. So that could be in a one-on-one setting, like when you're meeting a new person or a new leader. Hey, like, I'm so and so, I currently do X, Y, and Z, and I've been doing A, B, and C at these companies. If you have some like one-liners, I like to say I've spent $1 billion in ads in my career, so I know what I'm doing when it comes to advertising. So what are those one-liners or taglines that people can remember you as? And that's going to come up handy when you're going through an interview process, because when you're done with the interview, they're going to say, oh, I just hired this great person. She's coming from X, Y, and Z, and she did this. What is that about you, right? So same thing when you're meeting new people, what is that one-liner? And you're going to change that a little bit based on the audience or based on what they might be looking for and in language that they understand. So one-on-one's a good chance, and interviews also. And in meetings where your skill set is required or your thought leadership is required, speak up. And I know it can be a little bit difficult if you're more on the introvert side. Then try to cultivate a culture where you see the pre-read beforehand and actively comment on the doc with your thought leadership or and cite the sources or link out the docs. Then people can see this person, I thought she was just a quiet person, but she actually has lots of great thoughts. And we need to listen to her when it comes to these topics. So that's how you start slowly building your presence and building your brand as someone who's good at, certain things that you want to be known for.
Absolutely. Thank you. Let's give her a round of applause and welcome her onto the panel. Yeah. And finally, for our last one, Yan, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and then I would love to ask a follow-up question upon your introduction.
My name is Yan. I'm a software engineer at Google for almost 5 years. Before I joined Google, I was not too far away. I worked for Zoom as a natural language processing software engineer as well. And even before that, I was a computer vision intern at one of the startup in Los Angeles. And during at work at school, I was in a research lab for 4 years as a also in the ML AI space. So the question is, how did I get into my current role? This is a little bit long story, but when I was in college, I volunteered myself to participate in one of the a conference called Leap. So it's like a career driven like student organization. And at one of the event, I met a startup CEO who was doing this career like job seeking startup, like helping with resume find refining. And I volunteer myself as a power user in a sense, and then submit my resume. They match me with Zoom. But initially, the Zoom, the company had an offer for me to as a admin officer at the front desk. I said, of course, no, but just I will keep. Can you keep the door open for me? And after half year, I reached out again, asking them whether they still have an opportunity for me, and they said they have a data science role as an intern. So I took that role as a data scientist intern at Zoom, and after summer, they really liked my work. And when it get to my graduation, get a return offer, then the company already know, like the company is quite small, like 300 around 300 employee by the time. They already know me. The engineering team already know me, so they offer me a role as a software engineer instead. And after 9 months, actually very shortly before Zoom got IPO, I left Zoom. um, and because I feel like I need to kind of strengthening my engineering skills. So I took a role at Google as a software engineer at Android Automotive. So it's a very backend um, task. We build open source. We work on the Android open source repo and building the framework for the Android system. So I took the role. It has been 4.5 years. I feel like I'm growing to like the role better and loving the automotive industry better and loving the software engineer backend job a lot better.
Awesome. So with that, let me ask you, talk to us about STEM representation. I know we have March as Women's History Month. I know the whole hashtag women in STEM, women in tech is amazing. But I think with that, really, how is the representation? Is it super collaborative? Women uplifting women, as we saw with Barbie this summer, right? Or is it pretty competitive given the lack of representation?
Um, I I think it's definitely getting better. When I first joined my team at Google, we have perhaps 10 versus 1 female in the team. And well, this is also kind of tricky in my case because I work in automotive cross software engineer, so it has even less female presence. But actually, I want to go back to what Jennifer mentioned earlier on. Don't think too much about the gender, but more on what values we can bring to the table. I am a very goal-driven person, so as long as I get things done, like regardless I'm a female or a male or whatever, it's just, oh, we all get things done. Actually, funny story, when at the beginning of the pandemic, actually my manager at the time, who's not very, not very, um, I think he's not very experienced as a manager, especially not a manager as a female employee. And he asked me whether I felt different as the only female engineer in the team. Um, I know. Yeah, yeah, I love about it a lot of time. So and I replied to him. It's very like very genuine way. I just told him, I don't feel different, but I do feel different because I am the most junior person in the team. I think that is actually making a difference on how much I can contribute to the team work rather than I'm a female or male. So yeah, just don't think too much about it, but thinking more of what value we can bring and what um like knowing what are the priorities, know what their priorities, what our priority, and how we can align our priority together to like to bring best from ourselves.
Yeah.
If I may add, so I rarely think about the fact that I'm a woman when I go into the office, other than we get to dress more fun. But honestly, I think the harder part is being Asian or being an immigrant. I've been living here for 16 years, but there are times where the English word, like, it's not my first language. And I would assume, just looking in the audience, that might be the case. I think confidence doesn't come from the fact that you are liked by everyone. It comes from the fact that you don't care if they don't like you. So if they somehow discriminate you because you're a woman, it's their loss. And if you have an idiotic manager like this, the leadership needs to know so they can better train their managers. And if you constantly feel like you're being discriminated against because of your language barrier or your gender or your ethnicity, that's not the right room for you. They don't deserve you. So my advice is, if you feel that way, prepare to leave, right? You should be earning or learning or preparing to leave. So prepare to leave. But in the meantime, don't tell them you're looking for another job. You don't need to tell them that. They don't deserve that. So keep doing the bare minimum to keep the boat afloat and try to maximize opportunities for you to learn and grow your skill set or get the experiences you want for so you can get the job that you want, not this current job. Who knows, your shitty manager might leave, and at the same time you're still gonna, plant the seeds in everyone's heads that you're good at your job. So you do all that, but you can also be looking for a new job. So that would be my advice.
Absolutely. Did y'all hear that? You're either earning or you're learning, right? It's either you earn or you learn, but it's one of them, right? And if it's not that, then prepare to leave.
One thing I forgot to add, so I've heard from my men friends who happen to be managers, so it's not just men, like male managers, but also younger managers or inexperienced managers or millennial managers in general. They tend to undermanage than overmanage. So we're all scared of being labeled as a micromanager. So as a result, you may not be getting the coaching or the guidance that you need from them because they don't want to be labeled as a micromanager. So what can you do? Think of areas that you actually want active coaching on. Hey, I want to get good at X, and I've seen that you're very good at that. Could you actually give me feedback on this? And I would really appreciate it. So if it's presentation skills, like, hey, I'm presenting at this meeting, I would love your feedback. Or if you don't think they're a very good presenter themselves, then ask them, or you can find someone else. Hey, like, I've noticed that so and so on our organization is really good at that specific skill set I'm trying to gain. Could you help me get mentorship if you don't feel comfortable going to them straight? So after the presentation, can you ping me with your feedback? Same thing. I'm trying to get better at writing emails to executives better. Can you actually pick it apart and rewrite it for me? I would love every single feedback. So make it easier for you to manage, for your manager to manage you. That would be another tip.
Absolutely. And I just want to echo what Sora said, but active coaching. We all know what coaching is, but to insert that one word active, right? Where you solicit, where you take the initiative so that ultimately we're in the driver's seat, right? But with that, let's welcome Yan onto the panel with a round of applause, folks. Alrighty, so now we want to get into the meat of things. How do you really network? Right. So for this question, I'm gonna first hand it over to Yan and then Sylvia for the second response. With that notion of kind of like, I know Sora mentioned that like for her she doesn't see gender, but it's more of like the Asian ethnic experience, right? And unfortunately, especially with the whole gender roles, it's something we're so ingrained into. It's something we've internalized, right? And so Jans, share with us, how do you manage the double standard women face when men are viewed as confident, right? But women on the other hand are perceived as arrogant. How do you manage that?
I feel like a lot of times I see confident, but I don't think people view me as arrogant in a sense, actually. Um, so the feedback I get is I seem I seem confident, so I must be an authority. I must have the expertise on doing things. So this is actually most of the time the feedback I get. Um, but at the same time, I think a lot of time I'm just showing a lot of my passion when I like things a lot, when I do when I have a lot of experience or I have done a lot of research on it, I just like express it. While people might see me as I'm a confident, I have the expertise on it, but in a sense I'm just like expressing my passion. And I guess people, I think it's well received as far as I know. um yeah, I think that's probably I wanna comment on this.
This one's kind of tricky for me to answer. I think mainly because like where I work right now, it's like I want to say 80-75% of like everyone in the company is woman. So I don't really face that like sexism or any like kind of like microaggressions from men. Um, if anything, I feel like I do get some stuff like that based on age. A lot of it comes from like, oh, she's too young, she doesn't know what she's doing. Oh, like she must not be able to lead because of her age. And I guess to echo what Yan said, whenever I show interest in something, it's always like, oh, like you know this, but how much do you actually know? And I think again, it goes back to like the fact that I'm one of the younger people in the group.
Thank you. And with that, we'll just carry it along. Second question, right? I think this is something we all face. It never goes away. This question is directed to first Sylvia and then Jennifer. How do you overcome imposter syndrome? Especially given our ethnic background or immigrant family experiences, right? We're constantly told to work hard. You'll make it. Given our honor shame culture, where you don't ask for help and on all that, right? How do you overcome or manage imposter syndrome? So first, we'll start with Sylvia, and then we'll move on to Jennifer.
I honestly feel personally attacked with this question just because imposter syndrome is like one of the biggest hurdles I've had to jump in my career. I guess a little bit of a backstory is when I first started my internship at Hatch, another intern had started alongside with me, and she was a high schooler who was studying cancer research already, and she had like a huge portfolio about it, and I just felt really like crappy because it's like, oh, here I am, like an immigrant, like brown girl who like has no college education, like I'm older than her by like a few years, and I just felt so defeated in that sense where like, oh, there's someone already better than me and she's somehow younger. I think when it comes to imposter syndrome, a lot of it goes away with like age, not age, but like tenure. And now my imposter syndrome's not really there as much. There are times where like I do get doubtful on like my abilities, but as far as that goes, it's pretty much gone. I think for the room, if anyone does feel like imposter syndrome, like literally the biggest cure is to just talk about it, especially with the person like gets making you feel that way. I feel like a lot of times when I felt imposter syndrome come up, I always ran to like my manager or like a close like colleague or friend. For like literally like all the time, 9 times out of 10, it's always just self-doubt that's building up into imposter syndrome.
I take it.
Imposter syndrome. I had to look it up actually. maybe because I don't feel it as much. So it's great that I'm tag teaming with Sylvia on this because she felt that this really hit home in a different way. With that said, I kind of approach it in a more concrete way. Fine, I feel or I have imposter syndrome. What do I do? Right? Um, Base your work on facts. When you're fact-based evidence, I mean, there's who's going to argue with that? You're not going to argue because you did the research to find it. And when you speak with facts, people will listen. It's the difference between putting a slide together that looks real pretty and put actual facts in. I think Sora mentioned how many, advertisements that she had done. Those are facts. Sorry, I couldn't remember how many it was, but those are facts. When you put facts in your words, on a slide, or even when you're just talking in a meeting, then I think that really helps you to gain confidence because it's not something that you made up. You're not being an imposter in a way, not, no pun intended, but yeah, fact-based evidence, focus on that instead of, how you feel or, confidence level. And Sylvia kind of mentioned it toward the end. Find a mentor. Find a mentor that you could just kind of bounce these feelings off, or maybe you had a bad meeting or you felt you had a bad meeting. Find a mentor or somebody that you trust that you can say, hey, this happened. And then I'm sure they'll help you to kind of overcome that feeling or overcome that self-doubt, as Sylvia put it. I like the way she put it. It's a self-doubt. It's not them doubting you, you're doubting yourself. For me personally, in terms of imposter syndrome, I do have to agree with Sylvia. I think when I first started my career, because I was young, I am not young anymore, if you can't tell. But when I was young, I did kind of feel like, oh, but there's so many senior people around me and they know it better than me. Um, I think again, I found a mentor actually. I don't know if this is the next question, but I'm going to mention it now. I found a mentor within the company that I could just bounce off my ideas on, or my fears, and say, hey, I'm preparing for something. Can you look this over? Sora mentioned like, hey, I don't know how to write this email to an executive. Can you look it over? And I think with that step by step, you can really get away from, digging deeper into imposter syndrome, so to speak. One last thing I did want to mention is confidence. It's something we feel that it's intangible, but I think actually it's tangible. It can be measured tangibly. Look at all your achievements. And it doesn't have to be, I won the Golden Globe Award or whatever, but just this, I went to a meeting, I got my deliverables, either completed or I got people's buy-in. That is a big accomplishment because you can't go the next step unless this was done, right? So when you do that step-by-step thing, I think that's how you gain confidence and trust in yourself.
I'm going to go off script a little bit because I think I've been hearing the word mentorship from a little everywhere. Easier said than done, right? Finding a mentor. If I can actually follow up with Jennifer and specifically Sora around like, what does that really mean? Do I just cold turkey, like, hey, can you be my mentor? Talk to us a little bit more about what it means of like finding a mentor, starting with Jennifer, and then we'll go to Sora. Yeah.
Finding a mentor. My first mentor was within the company, but I do want to mention that the mentor doesn't have to work at your company. That's one thing I wanted to mention. But how did I find my mentor? I asked a lot of questions to somebody that I felt, I kind of admired, like in a meeting, and said, oh yeah, that person, I like the things that that person said. And it doesn't mean like I like blue and that person liked blues, but they 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 presented their facts with confidence, and maybe it's something I was interested in. I can't remember exactly, but asking questions and developing that relationship, that's how I really found my mentor. There wasn't a big formula, but also when there were times that I felt that I wanted to give up, because there's a lot of times when you're going to want to feel like you want to give up, then I also tried to find somebody that was in my same position, because I had the luxury that I had a predecessor who moved to a different position within the company. So I was able to ask her, hey, when you were in my role, did you go through this? How did you handle it? And, that's how mentorship really starts. I am happy to say that the two mentors that I am still receiving mentorship. It turned more into a friendship now because I have been in the industry long enough that I'm hoping I can be a mentor to somebody else. But yeah, that's how I began. Ask question, or I want to learn. I wanted to learn more about Excel back in the days. I was like, I don't even know how to do a formula. But you find somebody right in a meeting, or you find somebody like they're really good at formulas. Approach that person. I think there was some type of nuance on extrovert versus introvert that I did want to touch upon. The person that you may want to ask may be or may have a different personality than you, right? Maybe they're not we'll just use the word introvert and extrovert for the sake of the conversation. I think finding the best communication, the best way of communication with the person, any stakeholder is really key. And what I mean is, I remember back in the days, we used to actually have desk phones and we called each other. And I remember somebody would never answer my phone call. But then if I walked over, I get the answer right away. So learn their communication mode. And, so I think learning communication mode will also help with the mentorship, trying to approach people who don't seem approachable in that sense. Maybe you can approach them in a different way. Maybe you want to email them first and say, hey, I want to ask you a couple questions so they can see what you're going to ask them beforehand. I think it really helps out. Thank you. I'll let Sora go.
I don't think I've had like specific mentors. If I had a question I'm trying to answer, similar to when you're doing research, which sources do you go to get that data? So when I was at Meta during my maternity leave, I had an offer from McKinsey for a fairly senior position. I didn't know if I wanted to take that as a new mother at the time. So I actually reached out to two people I had worked with in the past. One made a trend. They both came from McKinsey. One was at Meta. One was the VP on the team that I was at Netflix. I asked both them the question, should I do this or not? And they actually had very differing opinions. Then I made my informed decision of not taking the job. So, and I never talked to them since, to be honest with you. I just gave him the update of like what I decided to do. So that's very important. So if you do go for someone to get specific insight or decision, even if you don't take their advice, still follow up with them. I think that's important. People want to know because they spent the time to give you that advice. Another thing is I have lots of friend tours. So I don't know. Most of the managers I've had, I've been able to build relationship beyond just the work side. I joke around. I'm a person. I'm a human being. Get to know them on a personal level, and yeah, I still grab drinks or boba with them from time to time, or I text them all the time. And I like that relationship because I think the benefit is clearer that way. It's not just and it's harder to do that as you move away from the industry or change jobs. But cold emailing people like, will you be my mentor? Like, don't do that. I don't know if anyone ever says yes unless they're actually not that busy and not that important. So if I get an email like that, will you be my mentor? It's really hard for me to say yes or no. I'm probably gonna ignore, pretend I didn't see it, but make it worthwhile for them. I'm busy. Like I'd rather in the 15 to 30 minutes, there's a lot of other things I'd rather do than have a coffee chat without an objective and a clear benefit for me. Introduce yourself. Hey, I've been doing X, Y, and Z, and I really think you could help me answer this question. Like make it specific enough and explain why I should spend time with you and helping you because I'm doing that because I think you're gonna go somewhere. So don't ask them questions like, are you guys hiring? Like, look on the job site, like do the bare minimum work. Do not like Google things that you can Google yourself and like show that you've done the work. Don't bother me with things that you can easily do. Because honestly, I think that's disrespectful. So prove yourself as someone that's worthy of that connection by selling yourself. It comes back to the one-liner, hey, I am doing I have this experience and I'm trying to get into this industry. And I've seen that you made that exact transition. Could you, 15 minutes or 30 minutes? I sometimes even offer, I haven't done this in a while, but if I really want to get someone's advice, I even make it easier for them. Like when you're taking a walk or on your commute, like just squeezing me in and or I've done this. at meetings where if there's someone that I'm trying to build a relationship with, but they're too senior, like I don't know how to build a rapport, literally show up to the meeting kind of early and like wait until they take a seat, sit next to them, make jokes, and like, how was your weekend? Oh, you have 2 kids, and you know what I mean? Like, try to do that, and like, if you think they're gonna go to the bathroom, like walk with them, so you get the 2 minutes to build that relationship. Like, there's so many other things you could be doing. These are like little tactical tips, but invest the time, but there are people that you want to be intentional with in building and fostering that relationship. So here are some hacks that you could do.
Awesome. Yes. With all of that being said, I think again, life isn't always picture perfect. Sometimes you go for it and it doesn't work out, right? So my next question is again directed towards Jennifer and Sora. Tell us about a time when you advocated for yourself, right? But maybe it didn't work out. What happened? What did you learn? And how has that motivated you to continue advocating for yourself instead of it being like a one-time done deal? So we'll first start with Sora since you already have the mic, and then we'll pass it off to Jennifer.
So if you advocate for yourself, it doesn't work out, that's fine. That happens, and you will be pissed for a day. Try to work on, not being pissed for too long and figure out what it is that you need to do to get over that. Feel the feels, like if it's taking shots of tequila, like go do that. Go talking shit about them with a, best friend for half hour, like go do that. But after that, you think about, okay, like, do I want to be on this team long term? Is this a fit for me? One analogy my manager who left gave me, like, you might be this beautiful jade, but if you gave it to someone who doesn't care about jade, it doesn't matter. Like, they only care about diamonds, and at that point, you could be plastic jade or real jade. They will not gonna know, and they're not gonna care to understand. So then you're not in the right place. So when things like that happen, so I'd rather get a candid feedback where this is working or this is not working, because if it's not working, then it's a signal for me to actually go out and go look for other opportunities. So it's actually a blessing that and it could also be that some skill sets that are required for you to be in a certain role, and you keep getting feedback that this is not, like, you're not meeting expectation in this regard, then have a real like chat with yourself, like, is this a skill set that I actually want to get better at, or do I actually not care? Then you're not in the right role either. So like, what things in your current role that you can take so you can go to the next role where your strengths are actually appreciated, and your strengths are some things that's gonna give you the promo and really grow in the ladder. So like, think about that. So of course it's going to suck, but I think it's a good signal for you to have as you navigate your career and pivot as needed.
Should I just say ditto? No, it's very similar. You have to have mistakes and failures in order to grow and order to give you a wake-up call. That's really what it is. So yeah, I've advocated for myself. Fingers get pointed at you. My example, I won't go into the specific example because you want to know the conclusion. But yeah, fingers are pointed at me. I advocate. I gave reasons why, etc., data, etc. They're gonna believe what they want to believe, or they're gonna decide what they're gonna decide. The main kind of like golden nuggets I learned from that is companies are a business. You can, yes, develop relationships and friendships, which I have done, but you are dispensable. So the best thing that you could do is, if you didn't succeed, learn from it. Maybe there was a skill set. I really like what Sora said, was maybe it's a wake up call for you to say, was there a skill set that was missing? Try to get feedback, or for the, the reason why you didn't, failed at that. But, failure, I kind of don't like that word, but for the sake of the argument, we'll call it a failure. Yeah, what skills can I actually hone from it? Is there something that I have to change on my skill set? Try to get portable skills out of it, really, from whatever you're learning. Maybe develops another skill. And me in particular, what I learned is what I told you about the company, that we're dispensable. And also that, oh, while I am here, what can I learn or get out of it? What can I take, which we call portable skills, with me to another company? I think that was the main things that I had learned.
Thank you. With that, my last question, or not last, second to last, is going to be for Sora and Yan. Given your role and industry, can you rely on technical skills alone for promotion? I know some of us kind of shared about it in your introductions, but give it to us real, right? Can you rely just on your technical skills alone for these promotions? We'll go with Sora and then Yan. Yeah.
Absolutely not. So I have a funny story. So I ran into a friend of mine from college at VidCon, and I was like, I went to college with that guy. And then my director at the time was like, you know, Michael, like, yeah, yeah, he's a director on Instagram. What the fuck? We're both like 30 and he's a director. What happened? And he was a political science major. No, actually, he was an economics major. But what I learned from that is he's really good at talking, even though he has more quant background. He's super good at talking and building relationships. So I think in a more technical fields, that's rarer and that's gonna help you move up much faster. And he admitted this himself, like he's not the best, I don't know, like SQL writer, whatever, like his technical knowledge is not the best. So if you think that's gonna get you promoted, like think again, because that's really not. And being a good manager, being a good leader really doesn't have a ton to do with actual technical skills. You just need to know enough to spot bullshit and figure out how long certain tasks could take, so that because someone could actually manipulate you and say this was actually something easy, but they could say that it was really hard if you don't know. But I think you just need to know enough, and then the rest is not really on the technical side. But you're the software engineer.
Well, yeah. So, I feel like for software engineer, it seems like technical skill is it's like a critical component. Actually, on the other hand, I think two things that are benefiting me most, other than technical skills. The first, is sponsorship. It's actually very important to find a person who can advocate for us. That's actually tying back to what previous discussion had about mentorship or advocate for ourselves. For me as an introvert, I actually benefit a lot from the senior people who in the same team who actually advocate for me. Concrete example is the last time, previous two times of promotion. I've no like during we have the calibration committee where my manager would propose my promotion package, and there are other senior managers who will like raise their objection or they would just say nothing and it can go smoothly. So I think based on my previous two promotions, there are senior managers who really like my work are advocating for me rather than myself advocating for myself. I think maybe it's because I am very passionate about my work and my dedication, or I have always have like good feedback. I always got good things to say, or when I ask question, I give them what are the results, what are my decisions, and I have a lot of follow-ups. That's why I do have a good relationship with the senior managers, and they are advocating for me. So this is one thing I will say it's way more important than the technical skills itself. And the second is find your superpower other than the technical skills. So I know my superpower is persistence and my passion. I think my team members, my managers, my senior managers know that is my superpower, and I practice it a lot every day, and even building into as my personalities. And I show up to work to be. I will sometimes when I like in the morning. Sometimes I'll have low days as everyone else, and I will keep telling myself, yes, I have to act professionally, so I have to go in to show my passion, to show my dedication to the work. And I think that's what have helped me a lot in my career.
Thank you. Yes.
For the promotion, you should ask. Sometimes you have people managers that really don't know what you want. Some people managers don't know that you want to be promoted because you may look pretty happy and satisfied and passionate at what you're doing. So I think asking is there's no problem to advocate for yourself. Like, I would like a promotion. What do I need to do? And they'll hopefully they'll give you a black and white answer. But I think you should ask. That's all I really wanted to say. There is no problem asking for a promotion, during your one-on-ones or whenever the appropriate time, of course. And then there's no problem to say that I don't want to be a people manager either. Some people, because of whatever level, they think the next level is becoming a people manager, but maybe you don't want to be a people manager, but maybe your coworker wants to be a people manager. If your manager knows what each of their employees want to do, then it's easier for them to plan these things out. So that's what actually happened to me too. I said, I don't want to do this, a tedious task every day that I've been doing. I'd rather manage other people. So then I became a people manager. Thank you.
Before we wrap up with our pearls of wisdom, I'm going to do a really lightning round question because I think we heard introversion, extroversion, personality types, and all of that. So we're going to go down the panel, right? If you lean more towards introversion, what are some tips or tricks or practices that empower you for self-advocacy? If you're more extroverted, how do you kind of include and uplift your introverted colleagues? Because I think what I'm also hearing is advocacy, networking, it's kind of also there's a second layer of how do you lift others as you climb also, right? I think it kind of goes hand in hand. And so we'll go down the line from Jennifer and then Sylvia and then Sora and then Yan, right? If you're more introverted, what are some tips or tricks to hype you up, to empower you to kind of speak up and all that? If you're more on the extroverted side, what do you do to be mindful and to include and uplift those who are more introverted?
So I'm an extrovert, and when I work with introverts, I give them a chance to submit their idea through writing or a different way and not have to tell me in my face.
I feel like I'm an omnivert. I have my times where I'm very introverted, other times where I'm very extroverted. I think if you're introverted, it's definitely finding what you're passionate about and then using that as like a talking point.
I'm 100% extrovert. And can you tell? But I did notice I had an amazing manager who was an introvert. So he was the one that was very busy commenting on the strategy doc before it gets presented to the VP. So we know he's good at his job. But it was a meta-wide thing where we asked people to raise their hand instead of talking over others. So that's something I noticed in meta that happens to ensure that not the loudest voice wins, because we all lose when that happens.
Yep.
I'm an introvert. And I think the first is as an introvert, I'm very analytical. So I will always go to people well prepared. So I know what they would be interested to learn more about, and I have my opinions, my thoughts, or my feedback. And be prepared is my kind of like my strategy on talking to a person with a purpose, or oh, I just thought about another thing, but prepared, passionate, persistent. Software engineer, you're very first.
Okay. And I guess with that, just to kind of conclude us off with one kind of last final pearl of wisdom question. With all that being said, again, especially as women navigating our careers, our lives, work-life balance, all that stuff with the multiple layers that we hold with our gender, race, ethnicity, all that stuff, how do you bring your most professional and authentic self to work? How do you maintain your confidence in your skin, your skill, and your own story without comparing? And so for this last one, we'll kind of go reverse order, starting with Yan and then Sora.
I've always been trying to be genuine at work, and well, I feel like I am very grateful for where I am at Google. People are very acceptable and trying to build a very inclusive environment. And I'm also part of the organization and my team, Women in Auto, and trying to build that environment to be more inclusive, to welcome all the voices. So I'm better at writing, and especially with the ChatGPT, it's actually very helpful for me to communicate through writing and actually broadcast my thoughts, my kind of my my feedbacks or my advice to the people, and trying to advocate for the people I do care about as well. So writing and and have a one-to-one interaction, which is actually very helpful rather than like having a group setting that have to be like very loud and attract a lot of the attention. So find the way that is most comfortable for us, which is very helpful for me for me as a being most genuine at my work.
For confidence, sit up. So I don't know if you've read Amy Cuddy's book on like body language. She had a really famous TED talk. She talks about it is Amy Cuddy. So even a blind person, when they finish a marathon or running, probably not marathon, when they are done running, they do this is a natural way. Like they've never seen other people do this, but they do that because it's a natural way where you feel confident, you feel like you just conquered something. So fake it. So like sit up and like before an interview or even an important virtual interview, I might do like a confidence yoga with Adrienne on YouTube. She has like 20-minute yoga poses where you really open yourself up. That's one. Another thing is so many people are faking it. Like you don't need to tell them. I mean, like if there are things that you genuinely don't know, like don't act like you know it. But a lot of times in tech, we're doing things for the first time. No other company has done this. We're all figuring this out together. So having that mindset, like don't feel like, oh, I don't know this, I've never done this. Neither have I, neither have he. Like, don't worry about that. Yeah, those are the two things that I wanted to say.
Yeah, big ditto what Sora said. I feel like working on your confidence really helps you advocate for yourself at a workplace. No one really knows what they're doing, and I feel like that's something I'm recently learning too, is like in an office space, everyone has one job, but really at the end of the day, everyone's just trying to make it through in one piece. Again, no one knows what they're doing, and I think that's like the biggest lesson I've had to learn so far.
I sort of forgot the question as I heard all these fun little tidbits here. But how do I be the best to me? You know, we're all humans. So don't be hard on yourself. Don't be hard on your coworker either. So I think if we treat each other like we're really human beings, I think it kind of brings out the humanism and the reality of why we're all working together. Another thing is, I think it's okay to say, I don't know. I think people are afraid to say that. It's okay to say, I don't know, I will find out, or you'll go to ask some other expert person on that. Those are the two main things on, how to just be your best self every day. One thing I did want to note too is confidence. No one's going to give you the confidence. You have to get it yourself. So I don't think we should go in depending upon somebody else. Like if I go into work, my manager's got my back, or if I go into work, I have my team with me. Yes, you have your team. Yes, you have your manager, but you have to do you. So do you at work is what I really want to say. Yeah, thank you.
And with that, let's give a round of applause for our panelists. Awesome. So we won't be doing a traditional Q&A because we're going to have a little bit of networking, mingling time with all of our goodies over there. But before we break, I would love for all of us to gather in the front for a group picture. Ruby, our photographer, will be taking our group picture. So if we can all shift to the front of the room so that we have our background and our panelists over here, let's assemble and we'll take our group picture and then we'll break into some networking and mingling time. Thanks, folks. Yeah. Alrighty, so our panelists are going to remain seated. If we can kind of gather and congregate around them. Get really close, guys. You got to go all the way in. You want to see okay, what's the name? Ruby, can you give us a little directions of what the borders are going to be? Because I can't see from here. I'm a border here. Okay.
maybe where those signs are on the wall there.
Awesome.
See those posters? So these people all the way over here are not gonna fit.
Alrighty, so
You come forward to the front.
some of y'all might need to squat a little bit. We got plenty of space over here, folks.
More. Yeah. Is that better?
We got
That's better.
plenty of space over here.
Okay, I'm gonna do a test, so this is not it. Awesome.
Tell us when to be ready, Ruby.
Just keep your smile going. please.
Okay.
I'm gonna take the bunch. All right, let's go. Smiling, woohoo! And I'm gonna do one more, wait, for me, all right. Okay, one last one. Everyone look here and smile. That's great, perfect. When I said one more, I lied. All right, awesome, thank you.
I'm gonna take
Oh, yeah.
for our and use Silicon Valley
Yeah,
Instagram. Okay, I'll also take some watch. All right, 1, 2, 3. Keep smiling. One more. Okay. Thank you.
Before y'all take over with the questions with our panelists, if I can ask the panelists to remain up here so we could do like a quick staff photo real quick, that would be awesome. But for everyone else, start getting your food and drinks. Your panelists will be freed up shortly. Thank you.
You will be that time. Until 7:30. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna gather the snacks.
Northeastern staffs, if y'all can come on standby, please. Northeastern staff and staff. Thank you.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Staff, we need the dream team to assemble, please, to document this, please. So, Gloria. Oh gosh. I know. Yes, please. Staff, dream team, Gloria, Abood, please.
Do you wanna go in the photo? He's like, I sent in my. Is there any other staff? Is Elise in? Okay, good. All right, Alan, see how Ellie's in is on you? Oh, both of you, yeah, you'll have to be on one side. Yeah. It's a different picture. Oh, okay. Yeah, with your eyes. Yeah.
Turn it off.
Because
It's up already. 29. It might be, if I send an email, this will be next week. So it'll be 29.
Actually, yeah, I'm sorry. Can I be?
Yes, so after this target, so you're finished.
Sorry. Here, I got it. Thank you for investing.
I wasn't gonna, I didn't register all this, but I thought it's probably pretty interesting. I stayed.
Thank you so much. Yeah. After they get the food.